man speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while. When will the lonely voice of youth cry, what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
All right. Welcome in. Wrong is in on time this time. Lovely. Well, as you saw from the thumbnail and the title, we really don't have a specific topic. I'm going to talk about a bunch of things, tie them together, talk about meaning crisis, intimacy crisis stuff. We got our sample, of course, right? And some of it's already in the cup, the correct cup for drinking. All liquids, all liquids. And of course, we have some tea from the Table Rock Tea Company. Wintergreen tea, very nice. They pick it in the wrong season, effectively. Quite the interesting flavor. And then I got some fig bars. They're the kind that don't make me sick when I eat. So that's that. A lot of threads have been coming up recently, and today was a busy day. I was getting deposed in a lawsuit. Very fun. Not recommended. Don't run out and try to do it. So I'm a little tired, but I got home in time. So I was like, oh, screw it. We'll do a stream. And it's part of the reason why we don't have a theme. The other one is, yeah, I didn't pick one earlier in the week either because things were busy and moving fast. Everyone's been all over the place. But also, I mean, it's time for a little wrap up, a little roll up, a little, it's post Halloween, right? We're into November, coming up on Thanksgiving here in the U.S. It's coming up on Christmas, right? All this stuff is sort of imminent. And yesterday I was at an entrepreneurship conference, for people starting businesses, right? Shouldn't really be expecting, too much meaning crisis talk. And yet, there it was. One of the themes, at least of yesterday, I didn't go today because I had to go somewhere else. One of the themes was the why. Why are you doing this? Why are you starting a business? Why are you running your business? Right? And they emphasize, well, it's not for money. Right. That's not how entrepreneurs think. They don't think about the money. That's usually why businesses fail. If you don't think about the money, your business is going to fail. Usually because people will steal your money, vendors or partners or whatever. But you always have to think about the money. It's a balance. It's a balance. One we don't like, but also one we have to have. And they were talking about this lack of purpose. They were talking about what drives people. They were talking about how to get your feet under you, right? Grounding yourself in your why, all of the sorts of things, right? And then, of course, the art conference is going on. And that's Jordan Peterson's, Humans Against Evil Humans or something. I can't figure it out. And, one of my deep criticisms of ARRRG is they went the wrong way immediately. Human flourishing. Wow. Human, define that one. Flourishing, define that. And now define human and flourishing together. And now juxtapose that with all the constraints, right? Which you haven't mentioned. So, if human flourishing means everyone gets an extra arm, like then how many extra arms do we have? If we can't make extra arms for everybody, then since they can't flourish, what do we do with them? Uh, and the reason why I mention that is because that's the argument people end with. Oh, we can't raise up everybody, which is true. Therefore, the people who can't meet our standard are going to be removed from our society, thereby standardizing our society, which is technically correct. If you could do that, that would work. But it's also evil, even if you could do it and it would work. And it's worth considering. Jonathan Peugeot gave this great talk at ARRRG, not only criticizing exactly what I was criticizing, human flourishing, uh, but a number of other things as well. And he used terms like ineffable, which I was like, yes, that is the correct term to use. That's the term I've been using for years now, because it's the correct term to use. So I was quite pleased. I think if you listen to the Jonathan Peugeot talk at ARRRG, you will hear a lot of the terminology that we've been using on the Mark of Wisdom Discord server that Manuel and I have been bandying about for some years now, and language from my streams. Like it's all right there. So I'm pleased that these things are sort of coming to a head to some extent, and that we're making progress in some real fashion towards recognition, no matter where you're starting from, that something resembling a meaning crisis, which again I think is caused by the intimacy crisis, is the problem. And it's the problem in multiple areas. I mean, I have a personal YouTube channel, it's just my name. I talk about the parallels, although I haven't done a video lately, between computers and the meaning crisis and how the meaning crisis is already manifest in the entire computer industry. So that's there. But there's a lot of other things, there too. Like I said, like this entrepreneurship meeting. Right. There was an ontology room in Clubhouse for a year and a half, 2 years, something's crazy. I don't know if it's still going on because they do it right about now. And I don't attend anymore because I'm here for you guys. Um, they were running into the same thing. What is meaning? How do we define meaning? Right. And then, they're software engineers trying to figure out a software problem. Or so they think. And they're bumping up against Plato. And that's another thing Jonathan Peugeot mentioned in his talk, which I was like, yes. But then when when you look around and people are like, "Oh, what's the problem with medicine?" Well, the problem with medicine is that, you can't find doctors that care. Oh, what the hell is care and how do you measure it? And meaning crisis, anyone? It's a good posting on Twitter about build more hospitals, not churches, which just, like, yes, I know 2 years of past history. I don't. So I went in and said, all hospitals were run by churches, all of them. Like, until not too long ago, like 2 generations at most. It's this hospitals run by businesses thing is recent. And it's ironic, right? These are the same people who blood-sucking corporations are have control of our hospitals, and that's the problem. Okay, maybe give them back to the churches where they were, dumbass. Just saying. Never occurs to them, right? And then this guy doubled down on, well, yeah, the government took all that over. And I pointed out charity was a function of the church, right, which is modern day welfare, right? Um, uh, education, church, right? All these things came out of the church, right? They were born from the church. And he was like, "Oh no, government does a much better job." And I was like, "Yeah, you're no, nobody thinks that. Nobody thinks government does a better job at anything ever. Just not the way people are." So you see people trying to address the sort of results of the intimacy crisis slash meaning crisis, right? You see people going, hey, there are these symptoms of this thing. And what's the thing and what are these symptoms? And let's get to the bottom of it. And what they're really doing is they're talking about the meaning crisis. And they don't even necessarily know it. Although, as I said, a lot of people are sort of converging on the loss of meaning, the lack of a telos or a why, right? The lack of a clear purpose, right? The idea of caring and sort of the whole empathy movement was very much along these lines, right? Oh, what we need is just more empathy, and that'll fix it. If we just had empathy for one another, that's just more care, right? That's just additional care for people. And like, fair enough. I'm all in on that part, but that's not enough. And look, some people don't have the skill of care. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to care about things outside themselves. And we had a narcissism movement around the fake news virus scam. Same thing, right? This is just lack of care about anything outside yourself. That's would make you narcissistic. The whole idea of people not feeling permanence, of not feeling as though they belong, right? They don't have a place, that domicide. This is all meaning crisis stuff. And that's what's interesting to me is that excuse me, it keeps cropping up in all these unexpected places in unexpected ways. People are discovering the meaning crisis. They're discovering that there's a problem. They're seeing the symptoms of that problem manifesting in the thing they pay the most attention to. And they end up starting to use a lot of the same language that people in the Jordan Peterson sphere have been using. People who use sort of John Vervaeke's language, you know, those words are outside of that sphere. And you notice some sort of interesting trends, right? People like talking about problems. And you can take something like John Vervaeke's meaning crisis, do a quick perusal of the numbers, you can see the fall off in the meaning crisis playlist numbers. Uh, and then you can look at After Socrates, hit that playlist, and you can see those numbers are relatively lame compared to the meaning crisis numbers. Same guy, better, more polished message, better videos in some sense. I mean, I think the video editing is terrible, but better than meaning crisis? Video quality wise? Absolutely. Content wise? Absolutely not. Um, and I haven't watched them all. I got burnt out after the first one and watched part of the second one and, was crying too hard. So, a loss of a great man with a lot to offer. And I think you see that attenuation too in Paul Vanderklay's best hits are over too. I don't think that's going to reverse it. It could reverse itself, but I don't think that's going to reverse itself either. People have gotten off point of meaning crisis. They've gotten off point of what Peterson was pointing to. This is the Peterson sphere, whether you like it or not. You can hide in your little corner if you want, but that's not where you are, and it's not your corner, and you can't hide there. But you can trap yourself there if you'd like. The movement that Jordan Peterson created and pushed forth, that changing of attention from the material to the ethereal, to the mysterious, to the potential, to the ought, from the is, it's a big deal. Begs the question, which I often ask and point out to everybody, why didn't the church do that? And by the church, I mean the body of the church, right? Not just the individual church administrations or hierarchies per se, but anybody in the church. And what you see is a bunch of people trying to be Jordan Peterson and failing miserably. If the ethereal is your thing, and you think it would be if you're a church, then why is this secularist beating you at talking about the ethereal, at pointing to the ethereal, at getting you attend to that which is non-material? It's a good question. It's a nice self-reflection in some sense. It's a nice positive critique that has enough contrast to be useful. Because there's a way in which the cause of the meaning crisis is the church's inability to keep people attending to the ethereal. Because the church is all about attending in various different ways, caring about the ethereal aspect of the world. And so the failure isn't some, meaning crisis brought about by the rise of science. The rise of science is due to a lack of pushback against overly scientific thinking. Excuse me. And it's hard because how much do you push back against something that successful? How much do you push back against something that gives people that sense of power and control and that leverage of force? Whenever you have a leverage of force, you also have a leverage of threat of force. How did we end up in a place where people are simultaneously asking for equality and saying, we don't like guns? Guns is a power equalizer. Women and men have equal power with equal weaponry, or at least more equal power with equal weaponry. And the same people who preach equality doctrine, those same evangelicals of equality, are the same people who hate things that make people equal. It's a very mysterious thing. It's an odd contradiction. And I mean, I'm going to push back on it, Nathaniel, but I don't think you're wrong. Nathaniel, if the church wants to beat the occult, it needs to at least acknowledge the mystics once again. A very Christian frame. Not opposed. I think it's correct. I mean, I'd push back on that. It's not the right way to frame it, but not a bad way to frame it, especially if you're Christian. Um, saying occultism is bad to occultists, they're not going to know what you're talking about. Using the term mystic is just going to be like, yeah, we were right all along because we're mystics. And yeah, the church has a problem with the mystics for that reason, I think. And that's more to the point. Like, we have this movement, this Peterson sphere growing into areas that you never thought it would affect. And look, the prophet of the meaning crisis is Carl Benjamin in his persona as Sargon of Akkad. If you haven't seen Sargon of Akkad YouTube channel and gone through the Gamergate playlist, you just don't see the pattern. He lays it all out. He makes a bunch of predictions. All of his predictions have pretty much come true. Every single one. All of the predictions he made, guys like Jordan Peterson and Brett Weinstein were making about the universities. But Carl Benjamin already made those predictions. He said, It's going to come to you too. I believe he called out universities. This is going to come to the universities. And I believe there is, in some sense, although this is bad framing, an awakening. But it's not a positive type of awakening, right? It's more of a movement of the zeitgeist towards the awareness of the scope of the problem. It's a lot of words, Mark. Everybody's seeing a problem in the thing they know best. And when they start to try and talk about it, they eventually end up near meaning crisis-y language, near ineffable, caring, justice, love, virtues and values talk than anything else. And the interesting thing for me is as more and more people notice in their little niche world that they care about the most, these meaning crisis issues, and then notice, oh, wait, this pattern is playing out in our schools, in our universities, in our culture. And I have a video on the culture wars. I don't think there's a culture war, right? There's the fight of many things that can never manifest culture against the tyranny of culture itself. And fair enough. I mean, culture's a tyranny, man. To that extent, Rousseau was right. Uh, Society has got a lot to answer for, we'll say. So the great awakening or awareness is really around this people waking up and noticing this pattern. They don't recognize it as a generic pattern or a fractal pattern or a higher order pattern. They just recognize that this thing is happening to the thing they care about the most or are involved in or whatever, and that it's hurting everything. Maybe destroying it or eating it. But you can't just re-enchant somebody by saying hocus pocus or ethereal 10 times or whatever. When people don't have that capability of informing the world poetically, the poetic information of the world, they don't have the eyes to see that, then there's a problem. They have lost their sight. And, maybe to some extent they never had it. Such things are not useful to ponder. You have to assume that they don't have a baseline and build up from the very bottom while pointing to the very highest thing that you can. A lot of the way to help meaning crisis people is all about this simultaneous building up from the bottom and pointing up to the top. And of course, you start with the top. You say, well, is money the thing that's making people do what they do? Because most of the things you do, you're not getting paid for. So that doesn't seem to hold true. And people will leave their jobs to take care of their loved ones, right? People will leave their houses, right, to take care of their friends. People will change jobs to get something less stressful. What's stress? Where is it? How do you measure that? Do you? Even if you can, do you? A lot of the materialism is wrapped up in well, we can do X. And maybe X can be done, but that doesn't mean you're going to do it. Doesn't mean you are doing it. Doesn't mean you can keep doing it. It doesn't tell you anything about the utility of it. I can build a railgun in my backyard and fire something to the moon. That is thing I can do. I'm not going to do that for various reasons. I can. I can measure my stress in terms of heart rate, nervous system activation, sweatiness relative to how physically active I am. There's all kinds of ways to measure stress, heartbeat, specific heart symbols, irrespective of how fast it's beating. But I'm not going to do that all the time. I might be able to take one or two of those measurements. Maybe I can get a continuous monitor for the heart, but I'm not going to do it. And we get confused that because something's possible, that someone's going to do it, and that them doing that is going to result in something. And often, it, the fact that I can build a railgun and shoot something at the moon ain't going to happen. It's true. It's true. I could, but the future, which is potential, is full of coulds. Some of which aren't even right, and we have a hard time discerning which. But that's why the meaning crisis is everywhere, because this loss of poetic information, the poetic way of informing the world, is very much the problem. When you can't inform the world poetically, you can't see the pattern. You can't embrace the fractal, self-similar fractal nature of the universe. You have a hard time discerning. The ability to differentiate things is lost. Totally lost. It's a big problem. That's part of the meaning crisis. And the symptoms are everywhere. The ARRRG conference is fundamentally a response to the symptoms of the meaning crisis. We've got these basically bad guys in the World Economic Forum. How do I know they're bad? They're framing the world in economics. Problem solved. Nassim Taleb, read all his books. Economists are frauds. He's softened a little bit on that. Almost all economists are frauds. I think that's as soft as he's going to get. He brings the goods as to why, shows you all the data. It's in the books. You can read it. It's right there. I haven't seen anyone refute it. I haven't even seen anyone try, which is even more interesting. It's almost as if when you tell a true enough truth, right, a holy truth, no one will dare. And that, speaking of poetics, reminds me of the brilliant William Blake and my favorite poem, because of course it is, The Tiger. The interesting thing about this poem, about what he's talking about, is that it begins, tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night. What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? And then, you know what it ends with? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night. What immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? The beginning of the poem, it's all about ability. The end of the poem, it's all about your inability to act, not your inability to accomplish, your inability to act. You're in such fear. You're enraptured. You're stuck. And that's the problem. We're stuck. Nathaniel likes to give me easy questions today, apparently. I'm tired, dude. Didn't I start with that? Really? This is what you're going to hit me with? How would you reframe ARC given the opportunity? That depends what you mean. I think it's a bad goal from the get go. The problem is when you have a group that is identifying against, and you could say, Mark, you Muppet, how can you make a claim that ARC is identifying against something? And the thing is, it's explicit. The WEF are bad guys. And how do I know the WEF are bad guys? Because they're identifying against, they're also using bad frame of economics. So ARC is using a bad frame of we're going to build a thing that's the WEF, but we're against them. We're not for the good. That would be a good thing to be for. We're not for justice or temperance or hell, rationality. Any of those would be better frames. And then the fact that your project bumps up against, contradicts, or wipes off the face of the planet, with any luck, something like the WEF is incidental because you can wipe out the World Economic Forum. You can neuter them or behead them or whatever you want to do. Those people are coming back. And all you've done is pushed over the bully once. And the problem is there's no emanation. Human flourishing is emergent. Human flourishing. Wow. I did a wonderful live stream with, well, I was on Father Eric's live stream. I didn't do the live stream. On Father Eric's channel there. And also on Randos United. At least one of the Randos United channels, because there's two. Because why wouldn't the chaotic rebels have two channels? And he said, no, I get your description of middle out thinking, right? I had used a Lord of the Rings. If you start the story of the Lord of the Rings at the Council of Elrond, and he said, then Boromir's correct. And I was like, yes. if all you know about the Lord of the Rings started at the Council of Elrond, then when Boromir says we should use the power of the ring and wield it against its creator, that is the correct answer. But you know, because you didn't start from the middle of the story, that that is not the correct answer. And so you see the difference between emergence, which is middle out thinking. We're going to assume humans and we're going to assume what we know what flourishing means. We're going to combine those two words as if that's a way to communicate ideas in the world. By the way, it's not. And that's going to be our higher goal. But it's not a higher goal. It's not even a definable goal. And again, people are realizing that what's going wrong. So my great observation after one day of the Entrepreneur Summit is that entrepreneurship is the new education. So education was supposed to make people successful, so we're going to pour our money into that. And in the US, we now have America's Seed Fund. We're pouring our money into entrepreneurs and trying to build entrepreneurs and make entrepreneurs and like construct them from the bottom up to become bigger. I got news for you. It's not going to work. Shock update. Emergence is not good. The good is higher than emergence. The good is above things. It's a virtue, or it's a transcendental. It's way up there. Random combinations of equal objects to make bigger objects presumes vertical causality and its arbitrariness. If you want to take seriously the idea of making the world a better place, you need to point at something better. Using human flourishing as a proxy for better is not going to work. It's not sufficient. It's not correct. It's not definable. And it's not better. One man's flourishing is another man's suffering. That's the first most obvious problem. Some people hate the beach. I flourish at the beach most of the time. Some people are miserable in the mountains. I actually flourish in the mountains too. Love the mountains. Most times. Some people would be here in the middle of South Carolina going, it's kind of bland. It is. That is true. But I'm 2 hours from the ocean, and I'm 2 hours from the mountains, and I'm mostly not cold, which matters a lot when you have an illness. So what do? You exemplify something higher, virtues and values. You don't talk about Hamas or Israel and their crimes. The crimes are not the crimes of a country. Crimes are committed by people. Find the bad people and you point them out and you give them consequences. You find the good people and you point them out and you give them consequences. For good people, you give them positive consequences, like statues and accolades. Maybe you give it to them after they're dead, in some cases. You give them support. You give them recognition. You give them celebration. And bad people, maybe you take stuff away from them. Maybe you give them constraints so they can't manifest their badness, which maybe they can't control. There's lots of things I can't control, like eating candy when it's in the house. Does that make me a bad person? Maybe they can't control it. That's why we have prisons. Everyone's noticing the meaning crisis, the intimacy crisis, in their own little corner, in their own little way, starting to manifest in what they think of as mysterious ways. They're talking about it, and they're ending up using the same language that we've been using for quite some time in some cases. These greatest hits of so and so are coming to an end, I would say. And that's just a function of the way it works. They're running out of steam. They can go low enough or high enough to look. They're looking out at the crowd, often from the stage. They're not looking up. One of my greatest flaws is that I see patterns and potential. So when I see a person, when I meet a person, even when I talk to them online, the person that I engage with is capable of so much more than the person that I'm talking to thinks they're capable of. Now, I tend to think I'm right because I tend to be right about these things. I'm not always right. And they tend to be scared, feel judged because I'm treating them in a way that, from their perspective, which is limited, your perspective is limited. Your perspective on yourself is very limited. You can only see out, can't see in, is unjustified. It's burdensome. You've got a running coach and he says, run faster. You can do it. That's burdensome, but it's better for you. And a lot of people are noticing this, and I'm on Twitter just freaking wrecking everybody's life with this. Yeah, tough trade off, huh, buddy? Trade offs are real. Now what? And people are just, they don't know what to do. Yeah, bad framing here, pal. They get upset. Why? Because I want more out of them. I want more from them. They're capable of more. I know they are. They could be better. They could be better. And that's the thing. The world needs you to be better. ARRRG is trying to do a political thing using political tools to manipulate another political entity by building a club of the wicked smart people. And look, I'm from New England. I hang out with the wicked smart people. They're there. You know, I mean, I don't know, but I suspect that Boston is like the hub of gnosis, smart people, wicked smart people. 30 colleges and universities in a 10-mile radius. Pretty impressive. Harvard, MIT, Boston College, Boston University. Good schools, good schools. Suffolk Law. And very useful, but not going to save the world. I don't care how many of them get together and figure something out. I don't care how much correct problem formulation you use. What is correct problem for? It's framing. Postmodernism brings us the loss of framing. And then the scientists notice, oh, how you frame a problem matters. And they call it problem formulation. What makes a problem? The context. That's what makes the problem. You make the problem. You. It's useful to make and notice problems. Sometimes. Not all the time. One of the themes that came up this week, and I think I mentioned it in the Father Eric live stream there at one point. To live is to struggle. If you're not struggling, you're not alive, you're dead. Technically. And it's good to know. It's no suffering. Suffering's inevitable. You have some choice. You can make every activity you engage in suffering. You can frame it that way. You can turn your live stream into suffering and say, oh, I had to do a legal deposition today. It was difficult. We were there pretty much all day, very little break, contentious, lots of thought. And then what? Who created the suffering there? Me. There are things you have to do that aren't optional. You can meet them as objects of suffering or as processes of suffering or as elements of suffering. If you want, I can't stop you. I don't think you should. Or you can meet them as opportunities for joy. Because when you're taking an action in the world, you have the opportunity to be generative. Actions are not neutral. But what makes actions good or bad is attitude, it's perspective. Same action, different attitude, different outcome. Doesn't seem possible to the materialist mind, and yet that's the way it is. Look around, you'll see it. You don't need anybody to tell you these things. You can just observe the world carefully and actually think about it, and you'll see it everywhere. Yeah, helps to have somebody point it out. That's why I'm here. I'm not giving you answers. I say it all the time. I'm not giving you answers. I'm pointing things out. I'm showing you things that are contradictions, that are paradoxes. Those aren't useful. You don't live in a paradox. You can't by definition. You don't live in a contradiction. You can't by definition. You see a contradiction or a paradox, that is the limit of your worldview. It may not be a problem, right? Some people, they're comfortable with whatever paradox they see and it doesn't bother them. And you could say, well, they're not good problem solvers. Maybe they don't see the paradox as a problem. And maybe if you don't see a paradox as a problem, the problem doesn't manifest and now you don't have to solve it. That's a lot less work. I'm just saying. You see this pattern over and over and over. Why are you building a business? What drives you to go through the process of being an entrepreneur? And here are the tools. So one of the workshops, this woman was amazing. She's amazing. Her brand is Roshow Live. So I think it's the Roshow Live or something, which I find just freaking amazing. She's a broadcaster here I think in Colombia, but in the state anyway. And she was talking to her broadcast friend saying, like, I'm going into the online media space. And they're like, oh no, man, don't do it. Online media is very dangerous. And she's like, they're all in media. They're just in TV and not YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or, whatever. They didn't even see that they were basically saying, oh, the media industry is no good, while being in the media industry that they love and won't leave. They didn't even see it. And that's the problem, is that our attitude, our approach, what we aim at matters. And when you have something like ARRRG and it doesn't have an aim, it's like, we're going to take human and we're going to take flourishing, because flourishing is obviously good in all possible contexts, and we're going to put them together And what it will emerge from that is ARC. That's our goal. ARC is going to emerge the human plus the flourishing. We're going to take two equal level undefinable abstractions, human and flourish. We're going to combine them together and build a Tower of Babel. Oh, wait. Did I say that? I mean, we're going to build higher. Are you? Is that going to work? But you see this pattern manifesting everywhere, over and over. This growth, this mischaracterization, this loss of meaning, intimacy goes right out the window. You see it. Everybody sees it. But they're seeing a different implementation, a different manifestation, a different set of symptoms. But then ultimately, that different set of symptoms is really just a manifestation of the meaning crisis. But they're all coming to the same language. They're all coming to the same conclusions. Oh, we can't just talk things through. Why? Speech is fairly universal. One thing that we are very equal in, it's speech. So if you're an emergence is good person, conversation is going to save the world. Equality doctrine intact. But of course, conversation just causes more divisiveness, more tribalism, more polarity. That's what it causes. There's a one-to-one correlation in exactly the direction that if you believed in conversation saving the world, you would not want to see. But it's there and it's clear. And we don't like the responsibility of our subjective experience changing the nature of the things that we call real. You fast. Your hunger is real. I fast, I don't get hungry. That's strange. But a lot of things are that way. The responsibility of being a unique individual in the world is too much. So we try to equalize things with conversation instead of accepting our unique perspective and trying to figure out where to fit that unique perspective to make reality better instead of worse. If you want to make things better, don't harp on what the World Economic Forum is trying to do and what they're saying. First of all, they don't have any power to enact any of this stuff. They're not a government body. They just don't have any money to really move the world. I mean, they got a lot of money, but the world has more money than their combined asses. Can they do some damage? Yeah, anybody can do damage. But the solution isn't we're not them, but we're a group. The solution isn't let's get together in London and have a bunch of stupid speeches, even though we're just as powerless as the WEF, maybe even way less powerful. It's the intellectual class that led us into the world wars. That's worth thinking about. And all this stuff is coming to a head. Is it going to take 3 months, 6 months, 3 years? I don't know. But I see it. I see the pattern. I see Symptoms of the meaning crisis leaking out all over the place. If you'd like to hop in, have a chat, there's the link. In the meantime, I'm going to take some tea. I'm tired. But the winter green tea is quite good from Table Rock Tea Company. Oh, it has been a long day. And it's been interesting seeing all these people talking my language, talking about my topics, sort of catching up to the meaning crisis train and hopping on board. And what are we going to do? We're not going to do what ARRRG is doing, I'll tell you that much. What a catastrophe. Is it better than nothing? I'm not sure. I just don't know. Another pattern you see a lot of is people taking credit for things. And people want you not to give people credit. I was always amazed by that. I remember being on Clubhouse and it was like, talk about John Vervaeke all the time. And I'm like, yeah, only when I'm stealing his stuff. Like, this is what John Vervaeke taught me. And the whole time, what they were complaining about is that I didn't just state all of the things I was stating as though they were my ideas. It's sort of this rebellion against cooperation, against proper attribution, against standing on the shoulders of giants. It's very strange. Very strange behavior. But that's what they were on about. And I don't know what to make of that. The rebellion, these are your ideas when they're, not. Right. At the time, I was working for the Viveki Foundation, right? I'm trying to, no, and I was always critical of John's work. So, a lot of people were like, that's the first time I've heard you say a bad thing about John Vervaeke. I'm like, nope, never happened. Always said John, always pointed out the errors in, or what I thought of the errors in John's work. Always. Nathaniel, revitalizing tradition is often seen as pure nostalgia. Well, rebels would like you to think so, but I can't see it another way. Look, tradition is a self-similar fractal pattern that holds the world together through time. Literally stitches in time. That's what tradition is. It's the thing that stitches time together. That's why universal history is important. Great series from Peugeot and Richard Rowland. Great series. The whole idea of stitching things together over time, throughout time, using time itself, is important. And is it constraining? Yeah, doing anything is constraining. Can it become tyrannical? Pretty much anything can become tyrannical because these are functions of our perception and perspective and our attitude. That's what we bring to the table. When people describe the horrors of something, like the horrors of capitalism, and I point out to them that exists without capitalism, they don't know what to do. If you say, oh, governments are tyrannical, we need to get rid of them. What if you can't get rid of governments? It's always been my argument. It may suck, but there ain't much you can do about it. Just trade off for having scale. More people cooperating towards the same goal equals better likelihood of that goal and a bigger goal that can accommodate more people in the future. We did a little tour of the law firm we were doing my deposition at. And look at these offices. They're the same size as the other offices for when we expand. Right. Planning for the future. Not forcing it to be a certain way. Nathaniel, whenever Vervaeke says neither nostalgia nor utopia, yeah, I realize I kind of want both those things. I think, well, yeah, because he's not giving you a third option, and the third wayism from Peterson is real. I have a talk with Paul Vanderklay about that. One of these days, I'll get a link tree up and I got to dump all that stuff into my local AI toy that I've been playing with. Even more fun. If you're stuck in a dichotomy, in a binary, it's wrong. That's all. It's not hard. It's not the Holy Jesus and the Holy Father. It's Trinity. That's weird. Plato, triangles. Goes back to Pythagoras, triangles. Why? Because without it, you can't have enchantment. See my early model videos, my models playlist. Triangles are important. That's re-enchantment. The other thing that's important, and it is important, is that additional perspective that that third position brings. So having just one perspective is obviously limiting. Having two perspectives is also limiting. And having three, I recently released a video about this, 1, 2, and 3, all right, opens up an exponential number of possibilities compared to two. And we don't take that for granted. We don't notice it when it's there. We don't have a realization of how big that is. We're simply unaware of the change from 1 to 2 to 3. And 3 is scary. And 2 is ununified. And 1, well, 1 is tyrannical. That's why we need to go to the none, to the nothing. We need to embrace nothingness. What are you, high? And then I don't know why there's nihilism in the world. You just said nothingness. Meditate until you feel nothing. What do you think is going to happen? Unnihilism? What are you, high? 3 things, not 2. Starting axiom, being is good. Whenever anybody talks about just 2 things and say, we're going to make this better, their emergence is good people. Age of gnosis. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to know anything. You can just do things in the world and goodness will manifest. You have to pay attention to the good. It's not all randomness, but randomness will emerge good. And that's where we get confused. Randomness has the ability to make it look as if good emerged. But really, the thing emerged towards the good, basically by accident. Unless somebody was looking towards the good when they were conducting, leading, forming the emergence. You don't just throw seeds out of an airplane and hope that it works out. You cultivate those seeds. A very old pattern. What else you got about Vervaeke, Nathaniel, since that's one particular area of expertise? I could talk at length about Vervaeke and or Peterson. Joe less so because his work is hard. And I'm not. I mean, I was all in on Peterson and obviously all in on Vervaeke for a long time. But the Vervaeke flash in the pan is flashed, I think. I mean, he's trying, but I don't know. He lost a lot of core audience with After Socrates. I was a little shocked, actually. And I think it's a good thing. Like After Socrates is a disaster. Um, really sad too, because I mean, there's plenty of good points in there, I'm sure, but Meaning Crisis, man, that really took off. And some of his work has been so helpful. I mean, the 4 Ps of knowledge, which is wrong because it's 4 Ps of information. But yeah, it's a really powerful way to think about things. Really powerful way to think about things. Nathaniel, well, Vervaeke and After Socrates talks to Hermes at one point. Oh, wow. So, can you comment on active imagination? I mean, wow. This is the danger of things like flow and serious play and imagination. Fact that your imagination is active is a little weird. It doesn't make any sense to say inactive imagination, right? What does that mean? That means you're adding the word active where it's not useful. And the problem is, if you don't take responsibility for your imagination, if you don't say, hey, this is my imagination and own it, you run the risk of going off into space. And I hate to say it, and people keep insisting that I'm wrong or being dishonest or whatever somebody call you intellectual dishonest on Twitter for this. Number one cause of schizophrenia is hallucinogenic drug use. Sorry. How's that for active imagination? If you activate your imagination by using chemicals, the odds that you'll go nuts are really high. Yep, that is true. Nathaniel, it's very much like Jung's Red Book stuff. I have not read Jung's Red Book. I'm not going to either. You have to start from the axiom that being is good because babies are cute. That's my evidence. No, because if you don't, you can't derive anything. It's all parasitic all the way down. So, being is good solves a lot of problems immediately. Or rather, those problems never manifest and thus never need to be solved. Even better. Double plus bonus. And it's that interaction with the framing that either dooms you to see problems all the way down or create problems all the way down or not. Yes, I was trolling for Ethan. Ethan says, can confirm. Well, Ethan has a new being, so he seems to like the little thing too. He's a cute little baby. I don't know if he's confirming that babies are cute or that being is good or both, but probably both, knowing Ethan. Ethan has been on fire lately. Oh my God. His Twitter is great. He's been really out there doing the warrior work, which I think is really important, actually. Or if you're going to be out on Twitter and Facebook and these places, you need to do the warrior work. Everybody talks about we're in a culture war, and I'm like, okay, I don't even care which side you're on. I want to know what you're doing. It's like, oh man, I don't want to get involved in the culture war. Are you saying you're not part of a culture? Like, I don't get it. Like, what are you saying? Uh, yeah. And we don't notice this, right? Just, oh yeah, that makes sense. You're a free individual who can do what he wants. You don't have to be part of a culture. Yes, you do. You're online. You're part of a freaking culture. You're probably part of 10. You're most welcome, Ethan. Most welcome. All right, back to Nathaniel and serious questions. Although babies are pretty serious questions, and being as good is pretty serious question. One more from Nathaniel here. Can you please use Muppet language for dialectic and dialogos? Oh my God, Nathaniel, why are you doing this to me, man? Jeez Louise. All right, look. I don't know how to say this nicely, so I'm not gonna say it nicely. Dialect and dialogos is bullshit. It's that simple. This is John's famous bullshit, only he's doing it to himself, which is where bullshit begins, to be fair, but also cut it out. The way dialectic is hinted at in Plato's Republic, which I am reading, it's part of the book club, not by myself on my own. Don't quite think I'm smart enough for that. So I need Danny and Ethan and Manuel and sometimes Adam and whoever else shows up. I need their perspectives, their insight, their pushback to understand this stupid book. Because it's hard. It's hard. And I'm a Muppet. And I know I'm a Muppet. I'm like, you're firmly in Muppet territory. The dialectic is not a thing between two people. It's not how the ancient Greeks conceived of it. As near as I can tell from all the reports I have, and I know some people, right? I talked to some PhDs in this stuff. The thing that we call dialectic nowadays is Hegel's description of dialectic. The problem with Hegel is multifaceted. One facet of the problem of Hegel is that everybody casts Hegel as a philosopher. Hegel was not a philosopher. He did not want to be a philosopher. He would not want to have been associated with philosophers. He was a theologian. Now, the problem with Hegel is he was a bad theologian. He wasn't even good at the thing he was. And fair enough. Being a theologian's hard. Not recommended. Don't do that. It's hard. Hegel's idea is synthesis, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right? Which is an emergence is good, right? You take the thing, you take the opposite of the thing, you put the two together, and bang, you've got a new thing, one layer up. You're a 3-year-old, cut it out. No, really. I mean, any 3-year-old will come up with that formula over and over and over and over and over. You just haven't talked to enough 3-year-olds, clearly. It's not talking for like 20 minutes. They'll come up with that. They might do it with Legos. I have one Lego. I have a ton of Lego, and they're apart. And I put the one Lego on top of the other Lego, and now I have a third thing, and it's taller. 3-year-olds do that all the time. Really, watch them. It's beautiful to watch. Like, look, I mean, the 3-year-olds are fun, right? But Hegel's not 3 years old, guys. Like, this is not a new revelation. Every 3-year-old finds it out for themselves. Is Hegel giving you some insight? Really? I think you had that insight. I'm sorry. So when we think about dialectic, that's how we think about it. It's one equal thing here, one opposing equal thing here. But instead of opposing, there's an emergence up from that into dialogos. That's bullshit. That's garbage. It's trash. Now, do I believe that you can have a conversation with somebody where you both benefit? Well, yeah, I do it all the time. That's why I have Manuel. That's the purpose of Manuel from my perspective. And not just Manuel. The biggest breakthrough on the knowledge engine model, if you haven't seen that video, you absolutely have to watch it. It's fantastic. It came from Andre, not from Manuel, and not from Muppet Mark. Like, it was Andre. Like, wait a minute, what happened? And everybody contributed, and, like, lots of people contributed to that whole project and, are continuing to contribute to the project. I mean, some of Ethan's framing lately has been, excellent. Nathaniel, I'm glad I found these channels before I read Hegel. Yeah, well, Hegel's only a problem if you think he's smart. Like, if you think he's saying something intelligent, just like Heidegger, think he's saying something intelligent, you'll read all kinds of garbage into him that's not there. I think I have a German idealism gremlin in me somewhere. Yeah, well, German philosophy is, yeah, dangerous. Oh, hold on. Aaron Black. Hey, Ethan. Hey, Mark. Hey, Aaron. Good to see you. Ethan, literally what I used to do at the soda fountain at McDonald's when I was a kid, mixing sodas. How come this isn't a thing? Right, right. How come it isn't a thing? It's a good question. Like, yeah. And the thing is, like, you get trapped in some of this stuff. And yeah, Benjamin Franklin, I don't like Kant. Nobody should like Kant. He's not particularly bright. Like, I mean that just technically, as low IQ individual. Um, I know people are howling, but he was so influential. I'm like, yeah, Helen of Troy was more influential, buddy. Now what? It wasn't a good thing either. And the fact that a lot of people listen to you doesn't mean you're right. Uh, it just means that maybe you're articulate, but stupid. Or maybe they're stupid. Or maybe they're just looking for something higher and they can't or won't look high enough. And so they build up something lower and emerge it into something they think is good. Look what emerged from the 3-year-old ramblings of Karl Marx. Was that emergence good? Not so far. And I can tell you technically why it will never be. Worker equality doctrine. Like, holy crap, dude, you've never worked at a factory, have you? I worked at a union shop. Nobody liked me because I worked. And I can just outwork most people. Just stamina, focus. I have a lot of stamina and focus, a lot less focus now that I'm sick. But before I was sick, when I was young, I could outfocus you. I don't care who you are. And that's the problem. It's tough to deal with the fact that we're the same in some ways and different in others. And we're the same enough that we recognize each other for the most part. And yet, we can't reduce ourselves to our personalities, to psychology, to a philosophy, to a worldview, to a religion, because we're the sum of our actions. And we're not only the sum of our actions, we're also the sum of our potential. Now, I don't know how to sum potentials because I don't think you can. But there's the mystery. And look, you can turn that mystery into great suffering. Oh, I don't know what's coming next. Ah, oh no, I don't know what's coming next. Or, I don't know what's coming next. Let's find out. I like Sally Joe's channel. She does these videos. She does her little intro. She says, "Welcome to the edge of my mind. Let's jump off." And if you know Sally Joe and you have a proper sense for the world, that's terrifying. Have you talked to her? She's so confusing. I don't want to jump off of that. I don't know where that goes. But she says it in such a beautiful way, right? Very inviting. Like, I'm at the edge of my thoughts. Come with me. Let's see where this ends up. And it's good, right? Because Sally Joe is good. As close to objectively as objective can exist. Objectively good. Nathaniel, the pattern I keep seeing is when a small amount of truth draws people to a bunch of BS and the blinders go up. Well, look, the problem is the following. Half the people are at the bottom half of the bell curve, by definition. And the reason why I've said that before, when I was working at Polaroid, one of the engineers said that. Didn't quite realize what he said right away. Everybody else was laughing at him, including myself. And then he went, "Oh, let's see what I did wrong." We all fall in. He's a brilliant guy. We all fall into it. We all fall into cognitive biases, right? We have, and it's weird. People don't make the connection, the relationship. We have a very clear sense, if you ask people, that their cognition is limited. Of course, cognition is limited. We're not all Eric Weinstein smart, right? We can't all have good memories. We don't all think as quickly, right? Then we don't account for, what does that mean? What if most people can only track 3 things? A thing that's personal to them, personally, like just themselves, within themselves. Their thing that they relate with nature with, and then a thing they use to relate to others. And you start to try to relate to others, and they tell you something that has a truth in it. And they can't track another thing. And then they follow that person because that person gave them a truth. And to some extent, if somebody gives you something, you owe them something. We know this, right? This reciprocal relationship exists. But what if their cognition is just such that they can only track the one truth? And then they just have to submit. They have to follow. They have to be led. They don't have a choice. I can't, and it would be stupid to try to know and understand and anticipate all the same things as somebody else so that I can, quote, keep up with them. That's why I have Jesse. Because now I don't have to go through movie history. I have Sally Joe. I don't have to go through art history, right? They make those connections for me. When I talk about that stuff, that didn't come out of me alone. I may have made those connections, but it was with their help. Welcome, Jesse. What do you think of my rambly stream so far?
Your family stream? Did you see that?
My rambling.
Oh, rambling stream. It is a family of concepts. Good so far. Been tuning in and out. Had some things to do. Got a bit of time, so I thought I'd jump on. And
You have a life?
busy.
It's not.
Yeah, I have.
What? Outrageous.
What? Muppets have lives, guys. They live.
I don't recommend it.
It's hard.
Eventually you'll end
Living
up
is
in a
hard.
lawsuit.
How's your health, by the way? Yeah.
It's slightly improving. We'll see how it is tomorrow morning now that this goofy deposition is over.
Oh. Is there good news or just more?
I mean, look, my lawyer was thrilled. I got in what I needed to get in, and made a couple points, and probably only made one one mistake in one area, which wasn't technically a mistake, right? It was, your approach could have been better here, sort of a thing. It wasn't like a,
Right.
you said something wrong. You didn't say anything wrong.
Yeah, it's gonna.
I'm still
bet you or something,
oddly
yeah.
sensitive to postmodern frame or anti-framing, and that happened, and I just freaking lost it. And I was like totally off script. All of a sudden, I'm like, fight the power. Look, I mean, I talk about this stuff, and this guy does that, and that guy. These are all my sins too, right? Like I still have those problems. Yeah, you can rope me in with postmodern framing all day. Like, oh, what do you think of human flourishing, Mark? Oh, that'll set me off. Or effective altruism is a good way to think about the world. It's like you didn't think about that. You can't. Like, what is wrong with you? I mean, come
that to
on.
Sam Bankman-Fried. Like, didn't Sam Bankman? He's now been convicted, right? That's the he tried to pin it on his girlfriend.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, now he's
no, nothing got him off. He's all gone.
Good.
Well, and you've seen the memes, right? The most fascinating thing that absolutely no one's talking about, but everyone's actually engaging with. So his girlfriend there or whatever, the woman executive. So they show her before picture, and she looks, a little
dorky.
Yeah, but she looks very young, like 12 young, like way too young.
Yeah, shiny
and really cute. Right.
What's her name?
And they show her getting out of the, but then they show her getting out of the car for the trial, and she looks like an aged crone for real. It's like,
okay, I'm going to look this up.
It is the same person and everything. And no one's really talking about what does that mean? Because it looks to me like the corruption took away the beauty. I'm just saying. That's what it looks like to me. Like I have this whole thing where, and you see these people sometimes, men and women, where they look, rode hard and put away wet is one of the terms I use. One of the turns of phrase I use just for horses, right? Which is basically, drug addicts often look rode hard and put away wet because they've just been burnt out from their amphetamines, basically. But you can see this. I see it everywhere all the time. I don't know what the rest of you is. I don't know why you don't see it.
Isn't there's a famous short video of Mr. Evil Obama? His pictures of when he's in office and how every year he's aging, or every 6 months, I think it is, or something like that. Yep. That was frightening. They were like, "Oh, it's just stress." Yeah, you're like, okay. Yeah, parent gets stressed. It doesn't.
Well, and that's a trick, right? So you're saying this change over time is due to stress, but people all have stress, and a lot of people have more stress than he did, and they didn't change in that way. And so it's like, I get that stress seems like an answer, but you didn't answer anything. You just brought up a correlate and made an implication that the correlate was responsible, when any simple observation or thought on the matter will tell you that can't possibly be true. And the way I talk about that is I say, well, yeah, you just stated a universal. In fact, that happened to me today, of course. I was like, okay, but you just stated a universal. I didn't say you just stated a universal, but I just basically did the whole like, well, that's true for any two words in the English language. If you take any two words in the English language and don't give them context, they can't have a meaning. It's not possible.
It's almost like it's a magic trick.
I know.
Look over here, look over here, look over here. Oh, this thing's happening on. That's what's going on off.
Benjamin Franklin. Maybe it's just a kind of illness like diabetes. Yeah, which maybe she got from being evil. Definitely does not look like a normal aging for sure. Right. Sally Joe. Grizzled is the term. Yeah, grizzled is another term. Wrong. Grim is grizzled. No comment. Sally Joe. People don't get grizzled at the same rate for the same things, and it's fascinating. Right. That's the point right there. Sally Joe, indeed, grim is by design. Yeah, look, I mean, if you take a negative affect to the world, you're going to get a negative aspect in your physicality. Like, your thoughts are going to reflect in your looks at some point in some way. And it may take longer for some people or whatever, because they're starting from different places. But
I could say
it's
it's
a thing.
something controversial as a photographer. It's people that have aesthetic quality or a what you could say is good looks, broadly speaking. They tend to be more comfortable on camera and more comfortable performing and more comfortable posing. I don't know why that is. Something with the confidence, having seen yourself and having that self reflection in the positive sense, or having a less of a disgust response, you could say. But yeah, it is a weird phenomenon of people that either look after themselves or are naturally good looking or have worked on themselves, not in the plastic surgery sense, but in sense of they've done the hard work to be fit or to wash their face or whatever it is. They tend to present well on camera, and they tend to be more at ease in front of the camera. Yeah, I think this is good. Yeah, something to the positive reinforcement of behaviors, which you can actually do, Mark, by the way, with certain assertiveness training. Not sure if you've thought about that, but there you go.
That is correct. Yeah. You're not sure if I've thought about that. Yeah. there's the lie of the night right there. Yeah. Look, assertiveness training is a thing. The irony here is that I don't think that self-confidence is a useful frame, because your confidence comes from your
it's not
outside interaction, right? And I use self-confidence. Like, I tell people, yeah, they have low self-confidence, right? But that's usually for people who are highly successful, but don't frame things in a positive fashion, right? In other words, they
would be a
get
better way to
something
frame
done.
that. Yeah.
Well, they get something done, right? And then they like, oh, I set up all the, all the colors on your website, correctly. I don't know if that's going to be sufficient. Maybe you'll like it, but I don't know. Instead of saying, this thing you asked me to do, I did it. Now it's done. It's like, because you don't, right? In the first scenario, you're anticipating a negative outcome from a positive accomplishment. It's just not good for you. And so that means you have low self-confidence, but your confidence comes from interacting with the world. And so when you're good looking, you have good interactions with the world, things are easier because other people are making them easier. And so when you come into a new situation, you're just like, yeah, whatever, man. Whenever I come into a new situation, it goes well. So why am I going to make it bad, right? And that includes being on camera,
I think there's also that sense of the loss of sentiment and character within the Western society. That lack of presentation or being presentable or holding to a certain standard has also led to this kind of mundane ugliness or casualness that obviously projects out to others. And if everyone's treating themselves as casual or mundane, or interactions or relationships in the world as kind of utilitarian means to an end, then of course that's not going to look desirable. It's not, you're going to avoid those people that treat you way that I'm just using this conversation for my own ends rather than for the betterment of the community or the content or the company
or a higher ideal or
yeah.
whatever, like something outside and above yourself and the other people in the conversation. This is the problem with Vervaeke's work. We're all going to get together and manifest something larger than ourselves. That's a seance. Technically, like, I studied the occult. That is a seance. That is an attempt to resurrect, manifest, grab a spirit and give it power in the material realm. That's what it is. Technically, don't do that. Please don't do that. I did want to.
Yeah, if you want a haunting connection, that's what modern dance music does. We're all going to get together, sweaty in the pit, and I'm going to raise up the volume and the tempo, and I'm going to get everyone has to get in, 3 arms up in the air. We're basically in a circle, imbibing a spirit or having an experience that's meant to be higher than oneself. It's a form of manifestation. A lot of these dance contents, and they do every trick in the book to get you to participate for as long as possible.
It's all the same emergencies for garbage.
Yeah.
It's all emergencies.
Not saying that is the problem. not seeing that,
Right.
it's not, you're not just going to a dance music conference. You're not just taking drugs and dancing. You're actually
Right.
embodying something that's far more malicious or
Yeah,
devious.
you're
Yeah,
literally in the occult without even realizing it. So
you call it what you
let's
want.
check
Yeah,
this out. So
yeah.
Sally Joe, there are wrinkled people who don't have the grizzle because they are at peace with their state. Right, right. Yeah, wrinkling and grizzling is not the same thing. And some people who are old just put you at peace. Exactly. Exactly. Benjamin Franklin. This is always a roll of the dice. This collides. What is this? With the correlation causation problem. There's no correlation causation problem. It's not a problem. Lots of things correlate. Causation and correlation just aren't the same thing, and nobody likes that for whatever stupid reason. Probably because they're retarded or something. I don't know. What if people with bad physiognomy are more attracted to bad ideas, like a self-fulfilling prophecy? What if
Conflation.
people with this who are attracted to bad ideas develop bad physiognomy? There you go. That's because that's what we started with. I don't know why you sort of
Conflating many things. Re-summarize.
well and flipped
Yeah.
exactly the frame that we had. Aaron Black
Mhm.
on language. It's amazing how big a part little words play. Something like and or seal. Yeah, well, I think the problem is we don't pay enough attention to language people are using. Shoot, I had a good example earlier today that I thought was fascinating, and I have
Using someone
lost it.
else's language. You're using Vivekian language. You're essentially embodying the spirit of Viveki when you do that. When you start to use other people's phrases or
Yeah, but
terminology, because you've not come up with that.
well, the other people's language is not. I mean, I think what Aaron's roughly getting at is the idea that small words and the placement of words in the sentence should be having a large impact, and
Mhm.
the impacts that words have are more about our unconscious than our conscious. And so a lot of times somebody will say something like in the spirit, right? Versus the spirit of. And those are very different statements. And we don't pay attention to how different those statements are. And so we lose our ability to switch
Propositions.
contexts correctly.
It's a proposition too. You're changing the inference. Yeah, it's which is a tell. You're not properly attuned to the world, you could say, which is difficult.
Yeah. Well, and I think people get wrapped up in a lot of things like causation versus correlation, and it's like it's not versus. Like causation and correlation are two separate things, and they just don't have any overlap. Like I don't know what to tell you. One can disprove the other. That's an overlap. That is an exclusionary principle. Like okay, if there's no correlation, then it's deleted from the realm of causation. Fair, right? But the inverse doesn't work at all. And a lot of people are using this symmetrical idea. And I think that's cognitive overload. I think when you load up your mind with stupid things, you stop being able to reason correctly and to use your rationality and to employ logic. Logic does not say A equals B and B and therefore B equals A. That is not logic at all. Like, no, that's not how that works. The symmetry is not implied. The symmetry has to be stated. And again, this goes back to Aaron's comment, right? Like the difference between something that's implied and something that's stated is huge. And yet, it's one little word. And we conflate those two. We're conflating the future with the past. We're squishing time. And it's a big, big problem. But again, it manifests in meaning crisis and then bang. And then, with people having access to every stupid thing in the world all the time, we see outliers and we go, oh, the IRS took that person's house. They must be taking everybody's house when they don't pay taxes, even though any cursory look at the numbers will tell you the IRS is not going to take your house, man. They're just not. First of all, every time I look into one of these IRS took my house things, they've owed taxes for 15 years. Like, it's not a new thing. Like, it takes the IRS a long time to do anything. One time the IRS owed me money. They just owed me money. And they had sent me this notification that said, we received your blah, blah, blah paper. And I was like, well, I sent my tax returns in all at once in one envelope. So I don't know what this means. But it didn't come with any other instructions. So a year later, they got back to me and they said, you filed your blah, blah, blah paper late. And I was like, dude, literally filed all my paperwork at exactly the same time in exactly the same envelope, which you told me you received. I don't know what else to say. And then what they did was they said, well, because you did that, there's a charge. And because there was a charge, we built up interest. And now you owe us like $4,000. And I was like, this is my first notification that anything untoward has happened. And you're telling me a year later, I owe you $4,000. And because I owed them $4,000, and in fact, for that next tax year, they owed me $4,000. They took my $4,000. And I was like, you sons of bitches. You owe me $8,000, you pricks. Right. And you notice they only took 4 to cover the 4 to get it to 0, but it was my 8. We don't notice little asymmetries like that, but they're not little asymmetries.
You want to make me angry? There we go. Example A.
Nathaniel, while knowledge won't save us, age of gnosis, dude. Age of gnosis. I'm going to write that article at some point. I did begin my journey towards better with a simple idea from Jordan Peterson, which I believe was be as educated as you are intelligent. Boy, man, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how you measure intelligence. I don't know how you measure education. I get the general idea that Peterson's after there, but these are dangerous
Application
waters.
Matters.
Application
matters.
Yeah, again, if it's cognitive load, okay, let's say you can only memorize 10 things for a week. Maybe that's not a problem as long as you memorize the right 10 things. But what if the 10 things you memorize are like Pokemon cards? Like, what did you do? You just ruined your cognition. It didn't change. Cognitive capacity is the same. But you ruined your cognition by aiming it, attending to the wrong thing, aimed it in the wrong direction. You are attending to the wrong thing. And so I think a better way to think about that is be careful what knowledge you get. And one way to look at this is real easy. Like, look, you can spend your day, and like, I'm not criticizing this, okay? I used to, no word of a lie, no, this is an impossible thing, right? Watch all 4 cable news networks all day, all the time, for real. Like, not 24/7, but like anytime I could, I had CNN, Fox, MSNBC. What's the other one? And the other one, now I can't remember, on all
ABC?
the time. No, it was
SMM, whatever it's called.
it was one of the other ones, I forget. But I had them on all the time. And that was great. But you can't do that and attend to something local. So you can know everything that's going on globally. The odds that you're going to understand that your family needs something goes down. Doesn't go to 0, I get that. But also, there's a lot of numbers that aren't 0 that are still so bad that that doesn't matter. Right.
Well, you need that connective tissue between things. Otherwise, it's just matter. It's just it's like having food in your house, right? Without the application or the awareness of what to do with that, it's just going to sit there on the shelf. You're going to have all this useless information that's not, you're not able to connect or to apply or to, to even give on to other people. like your Pokemon cards
Yeah,
or your...
but the connection aside, Jesse, the problem is you can't pay attention to everything. You can't pay attention to most things. And if you're busy paying attention to Israel and Hamas, that's coming at a cost. And that cost is paying attention to, I don't know, what the hell's going on in the United States if you're there, or in Australia if you're there, or wherever you are. Like, and people have finally started to get it. Like, I've seen this a lot. Like, Sticks Hexenhammer has posted a number of times now. I don't care what's going on over there. It doesn't affect me, guys, or something to that effect. Yes, that is the right answer. I'm very, very sorry that there are bad things going on in the world. But why the hell are you picking Hamas and Israel? And if you want horror, like if you want to understand the horror of not paying attention, there's a PBS special on the Ugandan genocide, I think it is, 10 years after. And freaking eye-opener, man. But like, you can't pay attention to everything. And, you may think Hamas and Israel is a bad situation. That sort of stuff is going on all the time in Africa. All the time. Maybe it's a smaller scale. Maybe not. I don't know. It's not always a smaller scale. Some of the larger scale baby killings and like burnings and capturing of school children and having them dragged off for no good purpose, that happens in Africa frequently. You're going to have to explain to me why Hamas and Israel is more important, buddy. Neither of those places are near enough to me that they have an impact. I'm not saying you shouldn't do anything. I'm saying you should be careful what you pay attention to. And I just want to address Nathaniel here. To make it more personal, I have a 7th grade education on paper. I have a high school diploma. That's it. And I struggle around educated people when attempting to convey a point of view. Nathaniel?
Practice.
Right. Well, look,
Practice.
Ignore educated people. They suck. Worry about people who are kind. Because look, there's a commonality that educated, kind people have and uneducated, kind people have. It's called kindness. And that's what you should care about. Because that'll pay dividends. You know what won't pay dividends? It's talking to educated people. They suck. I vote we take all the most educated, articulate people and burn them. That would be better. The sooner we stop listening to these Muppets, the further away from World War III we'll get. What caused World War II? World War I. What caused World War I? Smart people. Sorry. It just is what it is. Like, there's nothing. It's interesting, too, because Vervaeke saw this and actually mentioned, I forget which video it was in, but it's quite some time ago. But he said, like, oh, yeah, that intellectualism has caused a lot of death. Yes, it has. All the crimes of the 20th century, my friend. That's all from Napoleon onward. See my video with Adam on the French Revolution? From Napoleon onward, there was that's where that all began, with Napoleon, precision gunnery. That's where that starts. The success of precision and accuracy.
I would say when conflict began to not be able to be resolved on a local scale, aka dueling and civil law, having too many contracts or agreements between nations that were unrecognizable to each nation about what they didn't and didn't agree to, how they shouldn't apply these contracts or conflicts or tensions. Right. That's what ruined the world, because if local people behaving together is more important than nations behaving together. I'm sorry. When local people are able to resolve their conflicts in a civil manner, whatever civil means, which is basically like honoring the good, and having a fair negotiation, things resolve themselves. Like people want to get along. People actually want to live in peace. Many people were kind of coerced into the First World War. They did not want to do it. They were coerced, thinking, "Oh, it's like the Boer War, but economy maybe a little bit more civilized, or we'll do it in trenches and whatever." And it was anything but. It was misery. prolonged misery for 4 or 5 years, depending on how you want to watch it. That's not a local conflict. It's a nationwide panic or crisis, and that crisis continued for 34 years. If you want, if you want to mark it, which is probably right. Yeah, we have to be able to resolve things at the local level, otherwise, sentiment, character, society will continue down. Like this is the inverse of globalism, where everyone's just honoring the hive mind. Mark Andreessen, I think, put it right, where he said, it was the spirit of the current thing, and you've been able to watch that, and everyone's been able to track that since COVID. I think COVID's been this great crystallizing of much of the panic.
The fake news virus scam just dumped a lot more skepticism.
I think Peugeot put it rightly. It was a false god or a false idol or religion that inserted itself.
His speech really nailed it. I wanted to address Aaron Black on the cost of attention. Well, I don't know if there's a cost to attention. I think attention is inevitable. The question is where is your attention going? Have you heard a version of Brett Weinstein's time traveling money printer? No. Brett Weinstein went off the rails a few years ago, so I really don't sort of pay attention to him because it ain't worth it. He's not looking high enough. He's an emergence is good evolution believer who, quite honestly, disappointingly does not understand evolution, which is just funny to me because that is his particular specialty. I don't understand why money is a good frame for anything. Money is just a proxy for value, and value is created through mutual agreement. In other words, one person, one entity, one group cannot determine money. It's not possible.
Good luck, managing time or having time management. Like that's just a bad frame. Like you can't manage time. There is no way to manage time. You can manage your productivity. You can manage your receptivity.
Right.
Yeah. There's always an attention cost. It's called perspective, or funneling or filtering, depending on.
Well, no, it's just attention is a constant. Like there is always attention, and therefore you need to understand where it's going and train your attention, right? Otherwise, you end up doing strange things, and I had a strange experience with that. But before I get into that little story, because I do want to tell that story, Nathaniel, I appreciate that answer. It's kind to answer all these questions. Well, I'd like to think so. Also, it's what I'm here for to a large extent. I hope one day I can't get a question in because a bunch of other Muppets find out what's up over here. Yeah, it would be nice to be a little bit busier on the question side. I will admit. I did want to tell this story. This is a funny story. So I'm at the entrepreneur meeting and a bunch of the conference rather. And a bunch of people from our entrepreneur meeting, our Wednesday morning meetings, this is a conference in Colombia, right? They're all there. And so we're hanging out because we hang out every Wednesday anyway. We do other things. So we know each other. And there's a pitch contest, right? A pitch is where you get up and you do your slides and you say, you should invest in me because I'm awesome, or, whatever, get a little story. But it's like a 2-minute pitch, which by the way is absurd. If anybody asks you to do a 2-minute pitch for business, tell them you get better things to do and do something else. And Caroline, who runs it, was running those people. Do you have a pitch ready? Do you need help with your pitch? Or whatever. This is what she does. Right? Fine, fair. She's the director of not the conference, but the local entrepreneur group and such not. And she was the one who came up with the idea for that little event. So Jeff, one of our buddies, trips on the stairs up the stage, just falls over. And he's a big guy, so it's a big deal. And he makes a joke out of it and puts it in his pitch right on the fly because he's a very bright guy and pulls it off beautifully, right? And then my buddy Fred was there too. And Fred's like, I want to win this thing because they had this cup they were giving out. And this was yesterday was round 1. Today was the finals. And Fred got knocked out and Jeff got in. And so I was like, look, Fred, I voted for you, man. And I had missed his presentation, which I feel bad about, but an important call. I said, Jeff here stole it from me with his acting. Now everybody who watched it knows Jeff actually tripped and he wasn't acting. There's no question about this in anyone's mind. Jeff clearly somehow managed to trip on a stair. It happens, right? Whatever. But Jeff goes, "I'm bleeding, man." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "That wasn't acting. I'm bleeding." And he knows that I know that it wasn't acting. He was giving me his pitch prior to this, as practice, because I was happy to help. I was like, "All right, I'll just listen to your damn pitch. I don't care." So I know that wasn't part of an act. I know this. Like, I know this. And he's bleeding, not very much, but guys, like, so some pints of blood are coming out every heartbeat. We don't care. We're like, whatever, we'll just put a Band-Aid on it later. Just sitting there. He's like, "Oh yeah, I banged up my legs and the whole 9 yards." And you kind of tell that it looks like he definitely, bruised himself. But like, no. Like, he was bleeding hand and he's probably bleeding shins or something too. And Caroline goes to him and says, "Well, congratulations, you made it to the next round. Do you need help with your pitch deck for your 5-minute pitch tomorrow?" Because they're doing a 5-minute pitch tomorrow, which would be today. That was a 2-minute pitch. Why they did this in that order, I don't know. Anyway. And I was like, Caroline, the guy's bleeding. And all you care about is his stupid slides? I'm like, really? And she's like, "What? Huh?" And I'm like, "He's bleeding. Hello." I was like, he tripped, remember? And she's like, totally switches. You can see the switch, right? So at some point, this is just me. Oh, look, a human to experiment with. Why don't we run an experiment? But whatever. So she switches. She goes, "Oh my God, you're bleeding." And then Jeff holds out his hand and like there's a little bit of blood. It's not that bad. It's not dripping on the floor or anything crazy. And she's like, "Oh my God, we gotta get you like a Band-Aid. We have first aid kits around here." It's like, slow down, Caroline. And Jeff's like, "No, it's cool. I just need to go to the bathroom and like rinse it off and it'll be fine." And of course, he's not doing this because he's a guy and we're like, "It's just a flesh wound, like we don't, like, whatever. So we lost an arm. It'll be fine. I'll deal with it later. I got things to do." So she like flips out in the other direction. Is it all like, "Oh no, we've got to get you, first aid and ambulances and whatever and blood and this is terrible." And it's hysterical to watch. Same amount of energy, but you moved her attention from the thing she was already attending to, which is pitches and slide decks for 24 hours from now or something, right? To right now, however, danger of blood loss. Like, and then she's all in on that. And it's just funny to watch people do that. Your attention doesn't go away. It's always there unless you're asleep. Then it just moves into your head entirely and makes you dreams or something.
Well, it's why you need to sleep. You actually need to log your.
Right, but you see, that's the thing. Like, your attention is always there. What you pay attention to matters. How you're framing the world matters. Listening to other people matters. Like, all these things are super important because that's what makes up reality. Reality is fungible, right? Reality is going to manifest differently based on whether or not you pick up your Muppet cup to drink, right? Or your teacup to drink. Different reality once I drink. Reality is that the tea is good.
Scott Adams moment. That was a very Scott Adams moment. Let's all take a sip.
Well, I mean, it matters. I mean, I don't like the forced synchronicity, but that's him saying, "Tribe members, do what I do. I am your leader." And like, I'm not like, whatever. I mean, you have to do that. I just, I'm not impressed. I'm just not impressed. And I like Scott Adams. I have his book Win Bigly, which is good. I read it when I was in Scotland.
Is it good? Is it good?
Yeah, it's quite good, actually. His other book was good too. There was another book that he wrote that was really good. No, I got to do a book list. I got to do all that. We're very close to getting Google to play right with the website, and then we'll sort of launch into things. I do need, to your earlier point, I need to put up the aggressiveness training course. So I have to put that together. I have to put together my
Assertiveness,
sleep
Mark.
course.
Assertiveness. It's a holistic. It's not training people to be gorillas.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I got to work on all that. I've just been flat out with lawsuits and wrangling startups and dealing with technical problems and the fact that Google lies about everything and can't do simple things and doesn't know what they're doing anymore. You know, little things. We're getting closer, right? I got the storefront. Storefront is good, but oh my god, getting that ready and prepared has just been, it's been a nightmare. And I have a lot of help, and I'm appreciative of all the great help. But the world is in the middle of decay, so Google can tell you do this all day long, but then when you do it, they don't fall on their end of the bargain anymore. So yeah, everything's been a real struggle lately. But look, the important part is these patterns keep manifesting, and people are noticing them. And that Jonathan Peugeot ARRRG talk was so good. It's so good.
Yeah,
I was just like,
much better than
that is,
Peterson's. I've only seen one of them, but yeah.
well, but
I've only seen
yeah, I
one
didn't
of the
watch.
Peterson talks. Yeah.
I don't even care about Peterson's talks. Wrong, tell us. The thing for me with Peugeot's talk was, I was like, man, I would have said much of that in much the same way. And the fact is, he kind of got it. Like, he's figured it out. He's like, oh, Peterson just doesn't use the God word. I know, I'll use ineffable. And I'm like, yep, there you go. That is correct. Use ineffable. Problem solved. Now you can do all the Christian talk as long as you avoid the other Christian talk languages and get the Christian point across without being too Christian and scaring people. Yep, that is true.
I saw an interesting clip of Peter Boghossian, who's an elusive figure, but he actually quite savagely critiqued the ARRRG conference in a very interesting, very sly but a very interesting way.
Really?
I'll send it to you. Yeah. He said, well, yeah, I know. I have my own sort of discussion group over here in Sydney, and I said one of the broad problems with, you could say, anyone who likes the term right is that we have lacked the organizational skills for a very, very long time. And so anytime we see organization happen in our frame around our bucket, we get really excited about that. However, it is ironic that the side that lacks structure and organization can't actually get a bunch of people together to agree on something and actually build something, not in a reactive sense, but for long term. Because one of the things we've lost is guilds, is the passing on of practical wise information that people can build their lives on. It's not just head knowledge, but it's actually, this is how you do it. This is how you make a great chair. This is how you start a great business.
Right.
And it's long term, and it solves problems locally and also societally. You can't just teach someone to be a teacher. You have to teach them the skill of influencing a classroom in the right direction with the theme.
See, but all of that is bad framing. That's really the ultimate problem. Is all of that is, it's all true, but it's bad framing, and that's the problem.
Boghossian,
Right. Well, Boghossian. Look, I like Peter Boghossian. I'm on his Twitters every once in a while, and I haven't got any traction there, which is fine. I'm not like, whatever. I don't care. Like, you don't want to help. It's no loss to me. I've already tried to help you, right? So my cost is already paid. I'm not looking for payback, so it's cool. When you don't recognize what's actually happening, you end up in this situation where you're like, well, we've lost the sense of structure. No, we're rebelling against structure. People are constantly rebelling because they see structure as the problem. And that's the issue. Like, structure's not the problem. It's enablement. Structure is the thing that enables you properly. And why? People want agreement. Agreement is a result of equality doctrine, right? I don't need Jesse to agree with my thumbnails, which he doesn't, by the way. And I already know this, right? I don't need that, right? What I need is for Jesse to say, I hate your stupid thumbnails. I'm going to come on your dorky live stream anyway, because I like your live stream. And I want to get my message out too.
Relationship matters. The relationship matters.
The agreement doesn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not like I can, and this was very confusing on the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis Discord server. Those guys, they were trying to do the religion that's not a religion project. And they just couldn't do it because they're all rebellious Muppets. And they had some good ideas. They wanted to try some stuff. And Manuel and I were finally like, we're part of a community. We're responsible for this community, right? We have to step in and help them for the good of the community. I stated this before, especially back then. I stated it to them many times. I do not like your project. I do not believe in your project. I think your project is stupid. However, you need some organization. I am here to help you on your stupid project that I disagree with. I do not need to agree with them to help them. I do not need to. And it's ironic. These people talk about agreement and they go help drug addicts. Do you agree with the drug addict? Do you agree with their lifestyle? Do you agree with their choices? Do you agree with what they're spending money on when you're not what? No, you don't. Why is this a problem? Like, I don't understand. Why are you so enamored with freaking agreement? And a better way to think about agreement is consensus, because consensus is a little softer, right? But
yeah.
still, the bottom line is, if you want to do something bigger than you have to sacrifice. The sorts of things you sacrifice are different based on where you are in what you can do for the project. A guy like Karl Marx takes a simple observation, universalizes it, squishes the world, and convinces you of completely absurd and stupid things that any 3-year-old knows are not true. Right? And people fall for this garbage because they want to believe in the outcome. But the bottom line is, a worker is not a worker, is not a worker. All workers are not the same. I've worked with workers. I've been a worker. I don't care what the work is. I'm in the top 1% all the time because I have better focus and I have better stamina and I have better speed than 99.9% of the population, even when I'm sick. Period. Better.
Yeah, getting back to this point on consensus. Yeah, that is it's a magic trick. It's a magic trick that's being used on you. You can be in unity with other people, but still disagree with them. Right? You can still be serving a common cause because it's the service that matters. It's the common cause that matters. It's the good that's being produced that matters.
Well, and that's the difference, Jesse. I'm glad you framed it this way. This is really good framing, by the way. Thank you. You can view your disagreement one of two ways. View your disagreement as a way to cooperate or as an opposition. And this is why I don't like opponent processing. You don't have to rebel to cooperate, right? In fact, you can't. The difference isn't necessarily in what's going to get done, but it might be in how it gets done or how well it gets done or how quickly it gets done. When I'm working with somebody in spite of the fact that they're annoying, or in spite of the fact that they say stupid things, or in spite of the fact that they're an artist. Artists are the worst, Jesse. You're all the worst. Great things happen, right? It's a sacrifice for me, right? Because I have to put up with artists. Oh my God, I can't think of anything worse on the top of my head. But that's how the goodness emerges, because I'm not trying to oppose you and say, you're wrong. My thumbnails are awesome. And the way the thumbnails recently changed, I'm sure people have noticed, that was my friend Bill in England. Your thumbnails suck, Mark. Fair, Bill, what would you do? And he starts whipping up thumbnails right then and there on the Discord server. And I'm like, oh my God. And he goes, look, this took 10 minutes. And I'm like, what software are you using? And he's like, well, it's this software and it's free. Oh no, wait, it's not free. And you know, it's all this software he knows how to use because he uses it for work, basically. And I'm like, I can't do that in 10 minutes with your software because it's not that easy. It's not the software, it's not the magic. Right? But he just came up with that. And I didn't go, yeah, Bill, but it's not my style. That's not the navigating pattern style. Right. And then Sally Joe, because she's an artist, goes, these are the thumbnails I was trying to make you do from the beginning. And I'm like, Sally, you've done my thumbnails. None of them look like that. 0 of them. You can tell me that's what you were trying to tell me to implement, but you couldn't implement it either. So, and sure, you know, when you see the right thing, you go, oh, obviously that was the right answer all along. Like everybody does that because you kind of have to, right? You kind of say, oh, look, reality was correct all along, but reality manifests in the moment. It doesn't, you know, it wasn't necessarily there before, right? And so now we have a great new thumbnail format, and someday I'll get around to fixing all of the old thumbnails and putting them in a new format. At least I tell myself that every day.
And a new logo.
Logo's not changing anytime soon. We've got it in vector format now, so that's way better.
It's not good. It's not good. Disagree. It's fine.
If somebody doesn't make a new logo, we definitely want to adopt a new logo because I'm going to focus on thumbnails.
I've suggested it, by the way, everyone.
Oh, lots of people suggested lots of things. I'm not. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I've actually built, but no. Anyway.
We'll go into that later. Hold on. Taco169, the dynamic duo is back. Can neither confirm nor deny that I skipped the last half of Scorsese. What? Sploodle to be here. Well, you don't have to confirm or deny anything. No one's going to ask.
Are you talking about the woke Scorsese movie that's out right now?
I don't know. Is there one? I don't.
Yeah, Flowers of the Blue, whatever it's called.
Oh, I don't.
It's meant to be good. I know. I think directors should quit by their head. I think there's a certain cap off. Tarantino said that. It's like, I only want to make 10. That's good. I want to be known for 10. 10 great works. You know, Homer wrote 2 great books. In fact, the Greeks preferred the Iliad. I just learned this over the Odyssey. It was the West that preferred the Odyssey. Now that should tell you what if you've been paying attention to history, because the Odyssey is the magical one. You've got the Trojan horse. You've got this reminiscent. You go to this. You go to the Lotus Eaters. You go here. You're going back. You go to there. It's this whole sort of eternal return pattern. But no. That's not the Iliad. The Iliad is a dense character study of the gods, of the people, of the place, of the tragedy. You know, and it's the most subjective experience too, because you know there's Homer's showing you what's happening and then also moralizing, poetically telling you in symbols what's going on, and then at certain points he pulls back and just shows you what's going on. But the Odysseus is all just one direction. It's all just how great my fantasy or how great this quest is, and the failure to integrate back home. Like that's a there's your 2 worlds mythology right there. you can have the happy ending if you want. You can have the happy ending if you want, but this is it's not everything's that way.
It's weird. There's no such thing as a happy ending. We all die. Like I don't know what to tell you.
I know.
Cohen 69. Lucas didn't stop. Why should Scorsese? Yeah, because he saw what happened when Lucas didn't stop. That's my argument. Like, yeah, Lucas just got worse. over time. He definitely should have stopped.
I don't think
and
he
done
was.
something else.
I think he was portrayed. I actually think the prequels aren't as bad as people think. You just rooting.
No,
for
they're
the wrong
not.
side.
They're not in hindsight. But look, the guy can't write. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. He's just terrible.
Well,
All
Lawrence
the
Kasdan
best
did make the
lines,
better Star Wars.
all the best lines in the first 3 movies are ad libs for real, like well documented. You know, like the "I love you, I know." The script that freaking Lucas wrote because he's 3 years old was "I love you too." Like, dude, like that's way out of character, and B, dumb. Like what is wrong with you? Like, come on. Like, it's supposed to be dramatic. It's, like, I don't even
I don't
like
think.
how did he write that? Like what lobotomy did you get before you freaking took pen to paper on that one?
What about I Hate Sand? Yeah, it's a great.
What
it's
about
a
I
great
Hate
one and the third
Sand?
one. Yeah, that's
Yeah. That's another one. It's like, who the hell, wrote this? Like, what is wrong with these people? Uh-oh. The Holy Duck. Oh, thank you, Holy Duck. I enjoy the Iliad a lot more than the Odyssey. Jesse, thanks for bringing attention to it. There we go. Attention matters. Attention
Well, I'm
matters.
currently reading and studying the Iliad, and then I'll do the Odyssey. So I might actually bring myself to do a book review at some point.
Do a book
Too many
club.
projects,
Those are
guys.
better. Book reviews, man. I don't know. Book club.
Will you actually read it though, Mark? If I bought you a copy of the Iliad and send it to you, will you read it?
Book club.
This is live navigation, everyone. This is what I do with Mark and
I don't know. It worked last time. Ethan sent me the Republic, and then Danny's the one who started up the book club and basically said, "You need to come to my book club." And I was like, "I guess I do." Submission is a thing for me. It's like, oh, you guys are having a book club and you need my help. I guess I'm gonna be in a book club. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, it's not a magical equation, right? It's not like, oh, we have to pay you billions of dollars, although I would prefer that. It was just like, these people need my help. Like, okay, well then we'll read the stupid Republic.
One thing I would like to do too is I would like to do a book club on the language of creation.
You would have to do a video book club on that. Yes, book club and/or review. No, reviews are evil. Actually, single perspective, very bad. Single perspective is bad. It's not distributed cognition, so it's automatically going to reciprocally narrow, and that doesn't have no utility. But
well, no one's been reviewing things for years anyway. But yeah.
Well, yeah, but and all
the major review people aren't doing reviews anyway. So
right, but if you read multiple reviews by multiple people, then that's better. But doing one review is not better, right? And this is where people get confused because things don't scale correctly. Tekuan, yes, language of creation, yay, right? Like, woohoo, lots of.
We can make it happen.
That's a way more likely thing, even though it would be slow as hell because it's a small book, but symbolism runs deep. That's a real real possibility. Like, I'd put that on this channel for sure. Like, I'd put that on Navigating.
Do that. We'd do that every. How many like 60 chapters or something? There you go. It's a whole year. It's a whole year's worth of 1 week streams.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to think about it. It would be good to have distributed cognition on language of creation. Like, that would be good to see and good to engage with. I think that would be a net positive, because then people could really start to see some of the stuff, correctly. So having a distributed cognition on that particular book, I think, would be super helpful for people. And I think it would get a lot of attention, actually.
Yeah. There's 84. It's 5 parts. So we could condense. Some things could be addressed at the same time as a contrast, which would help. Like, 2 hours or so. So you don't need to do 84 single. Some things might need to be single single examples or single deep dives, however you want to frame it.
I think
some
you could.
things you would
No,
need to
you could
combine
jet
for.
through. You could jet through most of those chapters. The problem is the symbolism gets deeper as the book goes on, and
Oh yeah.
then you have to think more about it. So think the beginning of the book you can fly, and then towards the middle of the book you start to kind of get a normal pacing, and then towards the end it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, you're a cosmic scale of I'm not ready for this. Or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's very true.
And maybe we could if we do it, we could subconda the master of symbols himself. So it should be interesting. I would actually really like to get both of you guys together if I could get you to agree on it.
You probably cannot. Although I had some indication that that might be changing.
Okay.
But no,
I know he's wanting to break away from his brother a bit. So.
Well, yeah, I don't know what's going on with all that. That's an interesting idea. Benjamin Franklin. Here's somebody who's been told he's much smarter than he is. Odyssey kind of gets a bad rap. I don't know about that. It's a simple hero's journey. Oh, good Lord, no. A less true statement could not be made in English. That focuses on an individual protagonist. What book did you read?
Just flip those around, mate. Yeah.
Iliad focuses on collective agencies. What are collective agencies? I don't even know what that is. Wait a second. Wasn't the Trojan horse at the end of the Iliad?
Yeah, there we go, baby. The Trojan horse is nowhere near the Iliad. They don't even take the city in Iliad. That's the Odyssey. And it's actually done as a back projection. It's a hindsight. It's like, oh yeah, this happened. This is how we did it, by the way. It's not a major part. It's a what do they call it? Flashback scene.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Danny. I'm interested in a book club on language creation as well. Danny, you got me into enough trouble with this stupid Republic book club. I'm not listening to you anymore. Benjamin Franklin. Oh. Like, look, I run into this on Twitter all the time. People are like, don't you mean XYZ, blah, 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 blah? And I'm like, no, I think I meant exactly what I said. And then they're like, well, you need to explain this. And I'm kind of like, I did. And you don't get it. And I'm okay with that. And you're probably not, but what do you want me to do? I can't explain everything to everyone.
Yeah, get a concept, you put it into Wikipedia, you quickly look for the buzzwords and the content things, and you go, hey, it's that.
Benjamin Franklin. I read it a long time ago. Maybe I'm remembering incorrectly. Isn't the Odyssey about return journey of Odysseus?
Yes, but he does it many times. He never actually returns.
Yeah, that's the theme of the story. That's not what it's about. Those are different things. Like, themes often run through things, but what they're about is what the theme is exemplifying, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you can take different themes and just put the same story in there, and those patterns get contrasted, right? And so you can see this when people will go, oh, well, this movie's like this movie, right? Or you can see how a common theme plays out with different characters and different sets. And the best way to see something like that is to look at something like The Matrix, which has effectively the same theme as, well, a hell of a lot of other movies.
Star Wars.
Well, yeah, but
Harry Potter.
Yeah, they
use a template. It's like, really? They really use a template? When was this template agreed upon?
That theme that theme that's in the Matrix is, just comes out in so many other movies. Like a lot of the other movies you've talked about are along that line, right? Because you see that theme emerges. That's why you were talking about all those films. The ideas that are wrestled with in that movie are wrestled with in Vanilla Sky, right? Like they're there. It's that theme is the same same basic theme, right? The stuff that's in a lot of anime deals with the same theme, right? This transformation, this idea that we're slaves, right? Is the environment holding us back? Right. Because I mean, the Matrix is the environment's holding us back, and therefore we must fight the environment. And it's like, okay, yeah, that theme. Then there's not one theme, we'll say, but the change in the themes is interesting because the theme itself hasn't moved. Right? The way it's being exemplified is moved.
My take on my if I was to say one thing about the Matrix is that it's about agency. It's about the fact that Neo becomes an agent by the end of the film. If you didn't understand that or see that, then I can't help you. I can't help you see the other elements that actually reinforce that. Is that Neo becomes a part of the system. They never free anyone else throughout the entire other movies. Once Neo is freed from the Matrix, it's basically the only other time you see someone freed from the Matrix is Neo and Trinity in the fourth film, which is a fan fiction. There is, it's about agency. And in fact, the only other person who gets freed from the Matrix is Agent Smith. It's freed from the digital world, and he comes into the second Matrix, which is the real world, or whatever, the sewer world, you could say. I can't talk about that film more, Mark, without proper framing. Otherwise, people aren't ready to see the magic trick that's been played on them. Which is to say that what you're seeing is narrative patterns. Which is to get back to how we got on this. What you're seeing is narrative patterns. Stories are implementations of narrative patterns. The same narrative patterns that are in Hamlet are in the Matrix. Now, which are the same patterns that are applied in Lion King or Star Wars or whatever else. Harry Potter has the same thing. It's just the journey to become a mage or journey to become fully self-empowered. These are common narrative things because it's essentially it's built upon a cathartic story to really get back to a philosophical or Greek tradition of storytelling.
Right. But you see, but you see, like Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell is the same themes that are in the Matrix. It's the same base questions.
The same themes, but themes aren't narrative points. That was what I was.
No. Well, I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't like the way people use the word narrative at all.
Well,
yeah. Well, because they equivocate on that word so much. Like people don't understand the difference between narrative and story. I've got a video on this. They don't differentiate between. When you're talking about narrative, you need to account for the fact that there's theme, there's setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's characters, there's character development, there are arcs, and those are all independent pieces. And so the narrative is not just the conglomeration of those other pieces. It's one piece among many. And that's the problem, is that we don't have that enchanted view of how actually complicated this is. In fact, and this is where people say, well, the postmoderns had a point. No, they didn't. They were all evil, by the way. They didn't have a point. But this is where they get it from. Building a story that makes sense, that actually works, and manifests what we would identify as mere narrative is so hard for you to do that no single person can do it. And so they're channeling the distributed cognition through time that they grew up with, right? Through other stories, right? To point their story at one or more of these narrative patterns, which is one layer up. And because of that fact that the lower thing abstracts, because those abstractions were brought down as best that person could do and stitched together and flattened in a way that points back up. And it's that reciprocal relationship. The upper thing comes first, it comes down upon you, and then you do something with it. You realize it, maybe realize it, make it real, right? Manifest reality with it. And if the reality points up, you're pointing to a narrative pattern. And if it points across, it's basically something like fiction, right? And if it points down, it's bad stuff, like Karl Marx, right? Or Hegel, or like any number of garbage novels, romance novels, etc. And it's not that there isn't a pattern to a romance novel. There is. You can just stamp them out. That was one of the first sort of genres that had like a very clear, simple, workable pattern. By the way, if you don't know the pattern for romance novels, don't look it up. It's actually terrifying that romance novels at least used to follow this particular pattern. The pattern's horrifying. And the fact that it's ridiculously effective is just disturbing, right? Because it's
seduction. Seduction.
Oh, no, it's not. No, it's way worse than that. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Got it. Not going to talk about it.
Yeah. The beginning
Speaking of
in
evil.
particular.
Yeah.
Right? How do these things begin? And then what happens? Right. No thanks. Not a fan. The fact that
I don't like call them romance novels because I want to reharmonize that world with its proper state. Because a romance is technically meant to be an adventure, that has a long-lasting ending, and it's meant to leave a tradition in its place. That's fine. Right. Romance of the Grail is
right. But that points down, but there's a pattern there, but it's not a good pattern, right? In the same way that you can look at the works of Karl Marx and see patterns in what he's saying, right, and then realize they're ridiculous, absurd, nonsensical oversimplifications that lead to contradictions and self-reference, and then go, oh, and by the way, he's leaving out a whole piece of the picture, which is, even if he were right, he's not right, because manifesting the system that he's talking about still requires management. It still requires someone at the top. It still requires a hierarchy. It's just that he's not, and any communist or socialist is just hiding the fact that, well, there's still people at the top. Somebody owns the public land and gets to make decisions about it. It's just not you, right? It's like, it's not you, the reader. It's me, the writer, the author, the person who came up with the idea. Obviously, I'm the one that came up with the idea. I'm the one that needs to be in charge of this thing. That's very much the ethos of Karl Marx and many modern philosophers too. And many moderns in general, right? Or what we would call moderns. Many of these people, and Sam Harris is unabashed about it, right? Like, I have a 135 IQ or whatever it is, and I've got a moral system that works for people with this IQ, and therefore you should do what I say.
Yeah, there's always going to be different archetypal roles that people fit into. And what Karl Marx did was to try and put a black highlighter through a particular archetype, which is the merchant, more or less speaking, and saying we need to depower these people so we have top-down power from above. Rather than having the integrated layers of participation within society, we're just going to essentially flatten all. Yeah. If it's a triangle, we're going to reduce the amount of layers of in the world. To bring back a point. So yeah, some people have more agency than others. I'm sorry to say that. That is actually just
right. Oh, we're
a statement
different.
of fact. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everybody wants to be an individual until they realize that means you can't be equal. And then they're like, no, we want to be equal. I was like, yeah, but you're an individual. Like, but you gotta make up your mind, kid. Like, you pick one. Or come to the realization that there's a better way to think about all this. And then the conflict goes away. Like, you're a person and you're connected to other persons. And that changes the game sort of significantly. Right.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. I don't like person. I think it's a horrible character. That's a topic for a different day. Well, if you're a character, you can develop other character traits. You can develop your character. You can play the role in the drama or the story well. Like you could be a side character, but still shine out excellence in that side character role. That's honorable.
Yeah, but
that's virtuous.
if you're a person, you can manifest multiple characters, and that's what's really important, right? They talk about character development. It's like,
I'm skeptical. You don't have a single character. I'm skeptical on that for various reasons. I think people put themselves in holes rather than get themselves out of holes. So,
oh yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, they absolutely do, and that is the problem. Is that when you try to reduce identity to one thing, right? You end up classifying yourself and the world as single characters, and that's not a possible configuration for you because you're a person, and so people just end up confused.
Yeah, these are complicated dynamics to navigate.
Yeah, it is because it's there's a causality question in there, and I don't know that we have an answer to the causality question.
Yeah, what do I know too? I'm a struggling artist trying to figure shit out. Literally speaking, you actually have to swim through the sewers of the dead city in order to get to some city on the hill. To Peterson's point, you have to struggle up. You know, what often lays out is that city on the hill is actually that struggle up the hill is full of skeletons. It's full of pitfalls and darkness. It's not an easy journey up. It's you're
right. The struggle is the thing. Like the struggle is life. And that's what, people are like, I don't want to struggle. It's like, well, you don't want to be alive. And then they wonder where the nihilism comes from. I'm like, duh. I don't understand why this is so hard for you to get. But that's very much
why you need to integrate your werewolf tendencies to last week's point.
That's right. Benjamin Franklin, people do seem to demonstrate different characters in different situations. I mean, different identities because everybody has more than one identity, probably. Work personality is a great example. Well, any personality is a great example, but that's just your identity in that situation. Yeah, the agent arena relationship is real. It's just that John leaves out the fact that there are no agents that exist only in one arena, and there's no arenas with only one agent. And then once you understand that, his system works fine. And until you understand that, you have this stupid individualistic frame that will not help you. But it will, right? And Peterson has a different formulation to say agent arena relationship, but he talked about it in Maps of Meaning, which begs the question, where's this stuff coming from? Which is a good question to ask. Like, who came first?
We were watching Gladiator the other day. Well, we're halfway through it. I hadn't watched it many years, and it kind of dawned on me that Gladiator is actually not about the gladiator fights at all. The Gladiator is about the decline of the empire, essentially. That changes how you completely view the entire film. If you stop viewing it as this sort of framing about this one character's journey from, low, high, low, whatever you say like that. Stop viewing as one focalization of the narrative, or what would be easier for people to understand. The single thing you're meant to identify with in the film is just the Russell Crowe's character. As soon as you see that as it's a collection of events that are happening that symbolize, what Rome became and how it fell, then the movie takes on a completely different tone. It's no longer about how great Russell Crowe is acting, and it's about what the movie exemplifies, which is why I think they survived all this time and still holds up even 20 years later, is because it's about the battle of ideas, essentially, the deep down, and what the corruption actually came at both levels. Essentially, what the movie argues for. There was actually a bottom-up emergence that was evil and corruptive, the mob rule, and actually a top-down corruption because the elites or the ruling class corrupted themselves through lack of service to the traditions that they were meant to be founded on.
Right. Well, I would argue it's the top down that causes the bottom up. Nobody likes that. Everybody likes emergence is good, and I'm like, no.
I'm not saying, you know, I'm not saying that. You know, I'm not saying that.
No. I'm just saying but that's the trap people fall into. They go, well, it's top down and bottom up. It's like, yeah, but one came first, and one is more important. And it's your lack of the ability to accept a creation narrative, and the inevitability of the need for a creation to come first, which leads to being as good, or maybe being as good as required to understand creation. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. But that's what's preventing people from being able to move forward, because whenever you're like, oh, it's bottom up and top down, you're not accounting for the fact that one is more important than the other. Like, one is primary. One came first. It's not the bottom up. Like, obviously. There was no bottom in the beginning. And
okay.
But the implication of that, right? The implication of that is that there is a hierarchy. It does matter what's on top. The thing on top determines the goodness of the emergence, right? And that means that you need to keep your eyes on the good. But also, the reason why a good movie is good, like Casablanca or The Maltese Falcon, which is fantastic, or
Dr.
Key Largo, or Citizen
Dr.
Kane,
is a favorite of mine. Lawrence of Arabia.
Like these movies are good because although they're, quote, about one character, many of them, the richness of the world that's created is past the skill of the creator. Right. And that, again, this is the confusion of the postmodern. They're like, oh, that must mean that framing is arbitrary and you can just make up whatever you want. And it's like, no, it means the opposite of that, actually. It means that the manifestation coming down from above matters, and how close you get to it and how you get to it, like how you put the emergence together matters a lot. And the way it matters unfolds over time.
Yeah, those are great points. To to reinstate that, there's actually a funny thing I read a question of when we were watching that Gladiator movie, which is it starts with the war with the Gauls, right? And this is meant to be the last war with the Gauls, and the Romans win, and it's with Marcus Aurelius dies. And it said, Christina, it's funny that they're saying, oh, we finally won against the war with the Gauls, and yet given time, it's actually the Gauls that rule over Rome at the end. So this is the thing of the corruption and the top down. It was already, they think they're winning the last great war, but really it's just the start of a new set of events where the you could say the long lasting power structure actually won out in the end, which was the Germanic and the Roman, which is There's a reason why that movie starts in that place. It's not just because it's an epic battle scene and we need to identify characters that are great. It's actually starting with a thematic thread that if you don't know these things, if you don't have that, I wouldn't say sacred knowledge or secret knowledge, but if you don't have a proper alignment to the complete overarching story, you're going to miss out what the narrative is telling you, or how the narrative.
Yeah, I would push back.
Exemplifies the truth.
The less analysis you do, the better the movie is. That's any movie you can enjoy without understanding is a better movie. It's just a better movie. Like, the less gnosis you need, the better off you are. And I think that's really the problem, is they're so focused on
Well, I was trying to point out the richness of the story. I was not trying to put to the
No. I don't think richness has anything to do with your conscious awareness of anything. I think it's quite the opposite. The more consciously aware you are of most things, the less rich they become, because you're not engaging with them at a visceral level. And yeah, there's a problem with that when you have flat media. The movie is literally flat media, but also it still holds, right? It still holds because the postmodern ethos is born from flat media. Just books.
What would be
just the screen?
What would be an example there?
I mean, really anything. I mean, everybody likes The Matrix, and almost nobody. Like when I tell people, no one ever actually escaped the control of the machines. They're still in control of the world. Like nothing changes as a result of Neo is not freed from servitude to the robot computer god. Like that never happened. And they're stunned. They're like, what? Like they didn't see that. And I'm like, look, fair. Like, okay. Still really like the movie. You know what I mean? Like they still got a lot out of it. Now, I would argue most of what you got out of The Matrix was actually negative. Like I'm a huge Matrix. I love The Matrix. I do. I really love the movie. But man, talk about bad signals, bad information, bad knowledge, and just badness, like crammed into a movie. Wow. Like it's, it should win a prize.
What I think makes something rich, though, is the fact that it has these fractal elements to it that you can just participate it in a lower
Matrix has richness.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the fact that it has like, what's the fractal quality there? Oh, you're plugged in at the low level of the machine at the battery level. When you get freed, you're still subject to the machine at the larger level of the culture. Okay. I think Rousseau's still right.
It keeps scaling up with every
and its emergence.
Yeah.
And its emergence. I emerge from my birth into the machine, right? I emerge from the machine into my second birth, my rebirth, into the hull of the hovercraft. I am rebuilt, right? I am rebuilt from scratch because I did not know how to use my body,
my muscles. Yeah.
Right. And then I am re-educated, right, through a computer at speed. Like nobody notices the computer's re-educating him, guys. It's all technology all the way down. Right. And then they make that point in is it the second movie?
He's
Machines
literally a machine.
Alive.
No, they literally say he's how long has he been this for? He's like, it's been 12 hours. He's literally a machine. Right.
That
line is in the movie.
But then when he gets to Zion, right, and the senator's talking to him and says, "Do you know what that machine is?
Yep.
It has something to do with water purification. I don't know how it works, but we need it." So counteracting the message of the first movie, which is we don't need these damn machines. We were living before them. We can get rid of them. And then it's like, wait a minute, now you can't get rid of them? What's going on with that? No one notices this stuff, but they get that fractal sense without having that level of ability to break down the movie. Like, and like, I get it. Like, I love that movie. I actually still love it. I still watch it and enjoy it and appreciate it. And for me, the analysis doesn't kill it. For a lot of people, it does. For me, it doesn't matter. You know, like I've analyzed, Real Genius, which is a fantastic movie. I've analyzed War Games, another fantastic movie that I really love. I've analyzed these things, and I still watch them and enjoy them.
Starship Troopers. I've probably seen Starship Troopers like 20 times. For me, it never gets old. I love that film.
I've only seen it 3 or 4 times.
No, it's great.
It's absolutely
great. It's great on multiple levels.
That's
the psyop that psyop itself. It's like
It
It's
is.
like
It is.
you forgot you thought you were rebelling against the original author, but in fact you actually made the original author's point stronger.
Right. Well, you can't escape. Like, you can't escape
Yeah.
certain patterns. And
Yeah.
like, once you step on that path, you never know where it's going to lead. Right. And that's the problem. And I think that's a good way to wind it down. Right. A good note to wind it down on. So summarize it up, Jesse. What you got for us on the way out here?
Oh gosh, that's a... As he drinks from the bottle, I'll give Jesse. I'll make Jesse talk so it gives me a chance to reflect on what's been said. Oh gosh.
You know my tricks too well.
You're not going to escape participation in the real world.
Ooh. I like that. And that participation for me is going to follow these patterns, these fractal patterns. And they do coalesce in language, in expression, in thought over time. Like, they do turn into something deeply interesting and important. And there's nothing you can do about that. Like these are inevitable ways of interacting with the world and interfacing with the world. So yeah, like, you're going to get stuck in certain things, and you're going to start seeing these themes over and over again in the ARRRG conferences, in the speeches, right? Jonathan Peugeot's been on a freaking roll. His talk at Chino about the world is decay. It's like, wow. And then his ARRRG conference talk. Wow. And in one way, they're not a continuation of a theme, but actually they're a continuation of a theme. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's really what I'm trying to do, is tie all these things together and show you, no, this meaning crisis thing is everywhere, and it's being seen by everyone at different rates, right? But people are starting to really, really bump into it. And you don't have to be fearful of that. You can be grateful that, things are moving towards order. Now, how much chaos will still manifest, because the momentum of chaos is still a force in the world, I don't know. But there is a shining light in the distance, and you can move towards it. And moving towards it, as Jesse said, is your mode and method of participation. And so I appreciate everybody being here today and participating in the live chat, and hopefully in the comments down below if you're watching this not live. And I'm still happy to do these live streams, even though I'm dog tired, man. I'm gonna sleep tonight. Let me tell you, it's gonna be a good night's sleep. And
Be of service.
Be of service. Be of service to others. And look, we're coming up on all kinds of travel. So next Friday we should be able to do a stream. The Friday after that, we're definitely not doing a stream. The Friday after that, no stream, right? That's probably Thanksgiving. So yeah, we're gonna be light on streams, I think, until I think we got one more, and then it's gonna be December. So just a warning. And if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe. If you want to see Language Creation Book Club, put your hat in the ring for that. Whether you want to actually participate in it or not. And I know they've done them before.
Send in questions.
Had one. Yeah, whatever you want to do. I mean, obviously, if there's enough interest, then probably just have to do it at some point. Whether we do it as live streams or recorded or whatever, we'll figure it out if that's what people want. But look, the holidays are coming up. Things are going to get busy. Probably not, like I said, not going to have as many live streams, unfortunately. But I'll try to do as many as I can. And have a great week, everybody. And I'll see you next week. If you have any ideas for a topic for next week, leave them in the comments. And other than that, look, just participate with your eyes to the good, with as many people locally as you can, and filter out all the noise of the things you have absolutely no control over.